Shellfish. Today we're going to be talking about some of the health effects of shellfish, and the question that we're going to be pondering and wondering today is if shellfish is really good for us and if we should be really eating shellfish, and what our Father has to say about shellfish and the consumption thereof, that and more to come. Now, before we get into some of the health effects of shellfish, particularly shrimp and lobster and crab and everything else, before we get into the medical journals and the medical experimentations, I just wanted to show you this real quick. And it says arthropod scavenger cousins. And this may gross you out a bit, but it's important that you see the whole truth and nothing but the truth, because the truth is being revealed to you today. And as you can see to the left, it says the cockroach of the land. Well, guess what? There is a cockroach of the sea as well, and it even says, fact, arthropod scavengers, which are the decomposers of the earth, they are not fit for human consumption. They were meant for the consummation of dead, rotten flesh to keep the earth clean of corruption. Also, they are fluid-sucking parasites that spread sickness and death. Who would think of eating a cockroach? Yet the shrimp is considered the cockroach of the sea and the arthropod family, along with the crab, lobster, tick, flea, mosquito, spider, etc. And how many people eat crab and lobster as well? And as you can see, they look very similar to each other. And I know I posted this picture in my Hidden Dangers of Pork video as well. And if you have not seen that video, I highly recommend you do. I'll leave it in the description box below. But it also says to consume these creatures as food is an invitation for all manner of disease, allergies, and sicknesses diagnosed or misdiagnosed. Is it any wonder that scripture says you shall not eat any unclean thing in Vayikra or Leviticus chapter 11, and we'll be going over that as well later on in the video to come. But do you really think it's a surprise or coincidence that they look very similar to each other? Because you're really eating a cockroach and you don't even know it. Here's some more facts and information on shellfish, and I highly recommend you read this on your own time. I'm going to leave the link in the description box below and all of the helpful information so you can see more on your own time, but so that you can also see food and see the food that is dangerous for your body indeed, because shellfish feed on the dead skin of dead animals as well as parasites. They are bottom feeders, and they can be a host to parasites and other harmful organisms, as we just talked about. But did you also know that shellfish do not have a proper digestive system to filter out all of those toxins and parasites from their bodies, meaning that anything harmful absorbed into them, they stay in the shellfish. And if you're eating the shellfish, you're also eating all of those toxins and parasites. Did you also know that they're one of the most common allergen causing foods? Shellfish allergies are surprisingly common around the world, and we'll be going over more of that too. Shellfish, like shrimp, often comes from places that don't control the amount of toxins, chemicals, and contaminants that the shellfish are exposed to, and Dr. Axe will also be talking more about that later on. Shellfish have a very simple digestive system, making it difficult for them to expel waste. When you eat shellfish, you often end up eating those wastes as well. For example, when you try to devein a shrimp, if the vein isn't completely removed, you are essentially eating, yes, you heard it, shrimp poop. So whatever is in the shrimp, whatever is in the shellfish, you are eating it too. The same goes for pork. Shellfish of nearly every type is known to contain contaminants, particularly mercury. Mercury is one of the most hazardous of the heavy metals and can lead to serious health problems and adverse health effects later on in life. Not only that, but shellfish tends to have very high levels of cholesterol. With just 4 or 5 shrimp alone, ergo one serving, you're getting up to 150 milligrams of cholesterol, which is over half of the amount of cholesterol that you're recommended to eat in just a day alone. And we also know that shellfish is considered unclean because it's an unclean food according to our father Abba Yahuwah, and we're going to be talking more about that when we look at the Torah in Leviticus or Vayikra chapter 11, as well as Dabarim, Deuteronomy chapter 14. But shellfish is also known to be a bearer of food illnesses such as E. coli, salmonella, Norwalk virus, and hepatitis A, along with many other diseases and ailments. It's also a bottom feeder and feeds on the sewage and waste that are thrown into the ocean. But did you also know that shellfish increases the risk of health problems among those with medical conditions? People with altered iron metabolism, liver disease, and diabetes often have much more sensitive digestive systems, and eating shellfish can expose your digestive system to many more risks. And also, shellfish is usually cooked, but it's difficult to cook it properly. The fact that it's difficult to cook means that you can often be exposed to undercooked meat such as shrimp, crab, and other shellfish. It's the raw seafood that contains the most contaminants, and undercooked shellfish is definitely unhealthy, not to mention how it's highly perishable and it can spoil very easily, so it is not fresh whatsoever. Not to mention how it also contains many bad things for your body, as we already talked about, such as mercury and other contaminants that can be very dangerous, and it can even contain many pesticides, metals, or other contaminants from the water as well. But did you also know that many shellfish, including oysters and lobster and crab and shrimp, that they're linked to foodborne illnesses, especially ones such as salmonella, E. coli, hepatitis A virus, Norwalk virus, and many more foodborne illnesses that can be dangerous for not only yourself, but also for your children and for your family. Not to mention allergies, because did you also know, and it's no surprise or coincidence indeed, that nearly 7 million Americans are allergic to shellfish or other seafood, according to the FAAN, and many of these allergies are irreversible, not to mention how these allergic reactions can often start with and lead to many symptoms and side effects such as wheezing and itching and dizziness and swelling, not to mention how it can have a very adverse effect on your body parts and skin and bones and other places, not to mention all of the cholesterol and fat that is found, which can be linked to heart disease and high blood cholesterol and many other problems for your body. Now, Dr. Axe talks about shrimp and 5 reasons why we should not eat shrimp, and many of these reasons are important indeed, but the main ones have to do with how they have an effect on your body and what they can do to your body. Because did you know that 90% of shrimp are in fact farm raised? And according to a report from Food and Water Watch, 90% of the shrimp we eat has been imported, but less than 2% of that gets inspected by U.S. regulatory agencies. Well, what's the big deal? The big deal is that they're contaminated with banned chemicals and pesticides and many other things. It's basically poison all over again, where diseases can run rampant in these foods if you're not careful, if you're putting them into your body. And these types of chemicals are also found in them, according to studies published in the Mount Sinai Journal for Medicine, where they found that certain chemicals may be linked to the toxicity of pregnant women, not to mention many others, as well as how shrimp farms and packaging are utterly disgusting, because Bloomberg magazine back in November 2012 published an issue and revealed that some truly disgusting facts about the conditions in which they're packaged and shipped as well. And in fact, one particular facility in Vietnam, the magazine's reporters found that the processing plant floors were littered with garbage, with flies buzzing all around, and shrimp that wasn't being stored at the proper temperatures. The shrimp itself was packed in ice made from local tap water, with public health authorities warned should be boiled before using due to microbial contamination. And mind you, this was water in Vietnam, potentially exposing the shrimp and its eaters to more bacterial contamination. Also, according to Bloomberg, the FDA inspectors have rejected 1,380 loads of seafood from Vietnam since 2007 for filth and salmonella, including 81 from the plant that the reporters had visited. So you can see, if this is going into your body, you can only imagine the adverse health benefits, whether you have frozen shrimp or regular shrimp from the store or even from a restaurant. But did you also know that imported shrimp can contain antibiotic drugs and other disgusting things? In fact, from a 2003 study that was conducted in Thailand, they found that 74% of shrimp contain antibiotic residue. And in 2007, the FDA found that 25% of shrimp samples to contain other illegal medications that are found in these shrimps, not to mention how shrimp farming is destroying the earth and how they contain xenoestrogens. So no, it is not good for you whatsoever. Medical experts agree that shellfish is linked to various diseases and even cancers as well, because here's a report that was published in the Columbia University Medical Center that comes directly from their website that was posted as of June of 2016, and it says that contagious cancers are spreading among several species of shellfish, study finds. And we're going to go over this study briefly together, but it says direct transmission of cancer among some marine animals may be more common than once thought, suggests a new study published in Nature by researchers at Columbia University Medical Center, or CUMC. The study, led by Stephen Goff, PhD, the Higgins Professor of Biochemistry in the Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biophysics in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology at CUMC, in collaboration with researchers from Canada and Spain, revealed that in several species of bivalves, including mussels, cockles, and clams, cancer cells spread from animal to animal through the seawater. The cancer, known as disseminated neoplasia, is a leukemia-like disease that affects bivalves in many parts of the world. Now, although it's quite rare, the phenomenon had only been observed in 2 species of mammals. Now, we're here at Food Allergy and Research Education, or the FARE, and the reason that we're here is because there are many people that are in fact allergic to shellfish. I wonder why that's the case, but it even says here that shellfish can cause severe allergic reactions and many other things. Therefore, it is advised that people with shellfish allergy have quick access to the injectors and things that they need at all times. This allergy usually is lifelong, so it's best to avoid it as soon as possible. Approximately 60% of people with shellfish allergy experience their first allergic reaction as adults. Shrimp, crab, and lobster cause most shellfish allergies. Finfish and shellfish do not come from related families of foods, so being allergic to one does not necessarily mean that you must avoid both. However, to prevent a reaction, strict avoidance of shellfish and shellfish products is essential. Always read ingredients labels to identify shellfish ingredients. And of course, there are 2 kinds of shellfish: crustacea, such as shrimp, crab, and lobster, as well as mollusks, such as clams, mussels, oysters, and scallops. And reaction to the crustacean shellfish tend to be particularly severe. That includes shrimp, crab, and lobster, so no more red lobster whatsoever. But National Geographic also confirms the study that we already talked about earlier when it came to Columbia University and how there has been effects of cancer-causing things in shellfish, especially in things such as oyster and other shellfish as well. And as you can see, it's very, very dangerous indeed because it spreads like no other. And so now that we've just proven, medically speaking, what's wrong with shellfish and the hidden dangers of shellfish, now we're going to see what our Father has to say about shellfish and why they're not good for us. Because remember, we're putting a difference between clean and unclean indeed. And that's why we're here in the Torah and by Ikra or Leviticus chapter 11. And because this is a truth network, we use the restored set-apart Hebrew names for our Father Yahuwah and his true Son, the Messiah, Yahusha. And we're going to be reading today from verses 9 through 12 in Leviticus chapter 11. And it says, "These shall ye eat of all that are in the rivers, whatsoever hath fins and scales in the waters, in the seas, and in the rivers, them shall ye eat." So our Father Yahuwah commands us that only food that has both fins and scales we are to eat, such as salmon and tuna and fish like that. And all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and of any living thing which is in the waters, they shall be an abomination unto you. They shall be even an abomination unto you. Ye shall not eat of their flesh, but ye shall have their carcasses in abomination. Whatsoever hath no fins nor scales in the waters, that shall be an abomination unto you. And this is according to Scripture itself. And no, the law is not done away with. So we can see right here that what's considered an abomination, fish that does not have fins or scales. So this is not just including fish such as shrimp and crab and lobster, but it's also fish such as eels and shark and swordfish and dolphin. It is all unclean. It is abominable. We are not supposed to be eating it. Deuteronomy or Dabarim chapter 14 also confirms this in verses 9 through 10, where it says, These ye shall eat of all that are in the waters, all that have fins and scales shall ye eat, and whatsoever hath not fins and scales ye may not eat, it is unclean unto you. So we see that these foods are unclean, and the reason that they're unclean is because our Father Yahuwah, He's created all the animals, and including us, He's created the trees and the sun and the moon and the stars, and He's created everything, but He also created the animals for a set purpose, and He created the animals and certain animals so that they could clean up the earth and filter out all of the waste in the earth. And that's why our Father created the pig and the shrimp and all the shellfish, because what they're supposed to do is they are to filter out all of the waste that is in the earth. But when you're eating it, you're eating the waste that they're supposed to be filtering out. Very disgusting indeed. And then we also have Yashayahu or Isaiah chapter 66. Now this particularly talks about pork itself, and I talk more about this in my video, The Hidden Dangers of Pork, which I highly recommend you watch if you already haven't. But I specifically look at verses 15 through 17, which says, For behold, Yahuwah will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will Yahuwah plead with all flesh, and the slain of Yahuwah shall be many, they that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith Yahuwah. So we know there's severe punishments for eating these disgusting foods, and we know that our Father Yahuwah is putting a difference between what's clean and unclean, what's righteous and unrighteous, what's set apart and unset apart. And remember this, sin, the definition of the word sin is transgression of the law. That is exactly what that means. So when you're eating shellfish, whether you know it or not, you're actually sinning, you're transgressing against the law, because our Father commands us not to eat it. But what's going to also happen is that our Father is separating the righteous from the unrighteous, and those who continue in lawlessness, as our Messiah even talks about, and even as Paul talks about, well, there is a place for them indeed. And that's why we're here in Matthew or Matthew chapter 7, verses 21 through 23. And it says, not, and this is Yahusha, the Messiah speaking, and he says, Not everyone that saith unto me, Master, Master, shall enter into the kingdom of Shamayim or heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in Shamayim or heaven. Well, what's the will of the Father? Following the law, statutes, and commandments, the first 5 books of Scripture, and not saying that the law is done away with, but we also can't just be hearers of the word, we also have to be doers of it. And verse 22 says, Many will say to me in that day, Master, Master, have we not prophesied in thy name? So this is a future prophecy. And in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name have done many wonderful works, as many people will say in the name of JC. And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Because remember this, Yahukanan, John chapter 5, verses 43, the Messiah comes in the name of his Father Yahuwah, Yahusha. You even see that the Messiah himself, the real Messiah, has the name of our Father in it, but not the name JC. Now, Luke chapter 13, verses 25 through 27 also confirms what we've been talking about, where it says, When once the master of the house is risen up, and hath shut to the door, and ye begin to stand without, or stand outside, and to knock at the door, saying, Master, Master, open unto us, and he shall answer and say unto you, I know you not whence ye are. Then ye shall begin to say, We have eaten and drunk in thy presence, and thou hast taught in our streets. But he shall say, I tell you, I know you not whence ye are. Depart from me, all ye workers of iniquity. Another translation of iniquity is lawlessness, not following the law, not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments by saying that, oh, we can eat whatever we want, and oh, according to the writings of Paul, we can eat whatever we want and it will not defile our mouths, or we can bless it in the name of God, even though that's not the name for our Father when it's a pagan title. But what our Father says is to follow his laws, statutes, and commandments, and even the Messiah says to keep the commandments, and even John chapter 14 verses 15, indeed, which one will you believe, man or our Father? Which one is it? Choose this day whom you're going to serve. But as for me and my house, we're going to serve Yahuwah. Let Yahuwah be the truth, and let every man be a lie. But if you're still trying to look for Paul, well, look no further, because here are two scriptures that I'm giving you where Paul even talks about uncleanness. I wonder where he's talking about that from. I wonder where he's referencing that from, because newsflash, the New Testament, what you call the renewed covenant, had yet to be written during the time of Yahusha, Shaul, also known as Paul, and the Talmidim and disciples. They had to quote from the Old Testament, from the prophets, and from the book of the law, from the Mosaic law. And we're going to be reading from verses 9 through 10 in this particular chapter. Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of Elohim? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of Elohim. Sounds like he's getting that from the Torah to me. But he also says it too here in Afsim, or Ephesians chapter 5 verses 3 through 5, where he says, but fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becometh Kadushim, or saints, neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. For this ye know, that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous man, who is an idolater, hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Hamashiach and of Elohim. Well, be eating unclean foods and eating abominable foods, as we saw in the Torah, such as shellfish, that's what makes you unclean. So it's very important that we see how important this really is, and how serious this really is, and how serious our Abba Father, Yahuwah, really is. So I hope that this video has helped you see the hidden dangers of shellfish, because yes, shellfish is linked to many diseases. It is linked to many different cancers. It's also linked to all these carcinogens and many disgusting things indeed. But I also help you start to see not only the health benefits of not eating shellfish, but also I hope you see the word of our Father Yahuwah and how important the word of our Father Yahuwah really is. Because just as scripture even says, let Yahuwah be the truth and let every man be a lie. But if you're looking for even better scriptures, and if you're looking to abandon all of those watered down translations such as the KJV and the NIV and all of those other ones with the pagan English titles for our Father and Messiah that are of no effect, by the way, well then look no further, because here is the Sefer, which is a comprehensive restoration of sacred scripture that's written in the English language. Now what's good about this is that it restores the set apart Hebrew name of our Father Yahuwah and our Messiah Yahusha, as well as the Ruach HaKadosh, which is commonly known as the set apart spirit, and you can find that in these scriptures here. But what's also good about the Sefer is that it restores the Aleph Tav 9,837 times, which have previously been omitted in other translation. But did you also know that it includes all of the 81 books that were previously canonized as scripture, including books such as Enoch and Jubilees, and many others that were once in fact scriptures? It also restores an accurate order to these books, transliterates over 3,100 Hebrew names without substitution, as well as different Hebrew to English charts of the most common names and places that are found in scripture, not to mention a chart of the modern and Paleo-Hebrew alphabet that provides the meaning of each letter that can help you if you're starting to learn Hebrew, as well as different maps and charts and locations that can help you out on your spiritual journey. And what's even better is that this week, because it's the feast days, you even get a 20% discount, no coupon needed. But hopefully this has helped you on your spiritual walk and journey. This is Truth Unveiled here, saying shalom.